Hi everyone, I'm Nicola Rosado, a passionate software engineer, and today I'm really excited to start this new episode of Craftcode podcast about tech trends and demystification of IT principles. And today we'll talk about example mapping. We will see what is example mapping and what is the difference with other workshops, how to make conversation and acceptance criteria on user stories short and productive thanks to example mapping, and how example mapping can be an opportunity or bridge to introduce ATDD or BDD practices, and how keep going on the example mapping method in a continuous approach without risking skipping this step. And for this, today we are with Yoan Thirion. Hi, Yoan.
Hi, Nicola. Hi, all.
Thanks to be with us.
Thanks for the invitation.
Maybe we can start by the beginning. Could you tell us who you are?
Yes, I'm Yoan Thirion. I'm an agile technical coach. I work for a company called Pixie Swiss. I work in Swiss. What is an agile tech coach? What I like to say about it is I try to help as much as I can teams that want to be more agile. And by more agile, it means be able to deliver in an iterative and incremental way, or working in a flow. So using practices like Scrum or XP or Kanban or whatever. And what I do is really to try to coach, to train them on practices that can help them to use this kind of approach on a daily basis. So approaches like pair programming, test-driven development, everything related to craftsmanship and related to agile. Basically, it's really what I do on a daily basis.
And I know that we have a great initiative that is Advent of Craft, and we will talk about at the end of the podcast after the example mapping topic. So it's a great initiative,
pleasure,
and we'll see at the end of the podcast. So just to start the podcast, what is the example mapping, and what is the difference with other workshop? And by other workshop, I mean maybe our podcast listener don't know, other workshop like story mapping, event storming, and maybe value stream mapping, if you know. And for each kind of workshop, maybe if you briefly, you can tell us who we need to invite, when we need to organize this kind of workshop, when and the frequency, and how does it work? Maybe the minimum and maximum duration, and can we do it in autonomy or with the help of a technical coach like you?
Okay, a whole program, yeah.
Yes, a huge summary.
Yeah, for each of those topics or those tools, let's say it like this. I think we may do an entire podcast on each one, but I try to explain it as short as possible. Let's start with maybe a common one that is used when you work with agile in an agile approach. Let's say it like this. Often when we start to work on a new product, we start by using story mapping.
Story mapping.
Maybe it's the most well-known from the ones you have mentioned. The story mapping, what it is really a way to visualize user journeys. So it's really a way to visualize a backlog from the user perspective, the user journey perspective. And the idea is really to be able to prioritize this backlog, to maybe identify what could be an MVP, a minimum viable product, and create a shared understanding on what is the scope of our product.
Okay, it's really at the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly at the beginning, and then we can iterate on it and make it. The idea is really to keep it alive during the whole product life cycle. And it's something I like to start with when I start with a team. By the way, I have initiated I have facilitated one last week, and it was really easy, really useful for the team and the stakeholders, because it creates alignment and create visibility on what will be done by the team, what is inside the scope of the product, what is outside the scope of the product, what are the priorities, and so on.
The output is the backlog? The output is the backlog? Yeah?
Yeah, it's a great way to initiate a backlog, yeah.
Okay.
Because for story mapping, you start with what we call user task and user activities. It's it's basically huge items, topics that need to be tackled to be able to create a user journey. And then you can deep dive into more, let's say, fine-grained stuff that we will be able to, at one point, call them user stories. And once you have this, you can take decision which user stories would make sense to do. Identify maybe dependencies between user stories. Tackle those dependencies. Identify what could be the technical stuff that we need to implement. Takes a lot of decisions in this kind of workshop.
Okay, it's a higher level. So story mapping helps to figure out a backlog by exclude or include some task and user story.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. And what do we need to organize this kind of workshop? We need user needs. Let's say personas needs. What are the user that we have identified that could use our product? What are their needs? What are their problems? What could we do to help them with our product? We need to have maybe business goals, a vision, product vision that has been made by the product owner with other stakeholders, by the company, and so on. And here the idea, just like in all the workshop that we will discuss later on, the idea is really to have the developers. Maybe at this point in story mapping, we need to have product owner, some business representatives, so some stakeholders, some business experts, UX UI designers, every people that could be interested in the product at the end, and that could be, by interested, is really involved in the product lifecycle.
And what is the frequency for this kind of workshop? Maybe at the beginning and after, when we want to develop our backlog, or
yeah, what I recommend is really a tool for me. And I was with a team this afternoon. We have bootstrapped their backlog 1 year ago with story mapping, and they use it. Okay. Yeah, 1 year, and they use it in their quarterly to give visibility on what is on track or not. So it's really a tool that could be used during the entire life cycle of a product.
And who takes the initiative to later organize a meeting?
If you are in a team in which you have an agile coach or a scrum master, it could be really this kind of profile that may organize it. If there are none, it could be the tech lead or one of the developer or what product owner. It really depends on who is able to facilitate it at the end.
Okay, who is able to facilitate?
Who is able to facilitate? It's not that hard to facilitate, because often it's really easy for people to have a clear view on what are the from a persona, from a user perspective, what are the huge steps, the big step we need to implement in the user journey to have a sellable product or something that could be useful for the user.
Okay, so now we have a clear definition of story mapping.
It was the first one.
Maybe briefly for the event storming, maybe it can be confused with example mapping, so we need to define also this kind of workshop.
So event storming, but basically, maybe something important to mention, because we want to create alignment and visibility. We use in all those kind of tools, techniques, we use sticky notes to make it visual what's going on. We can use legend and so on. I say that because in event storming, we would like to focus on what we call domain events to discover and model business processes. So the idea, I won't go into too much details, but maybe one important point: there are 3 levels of event storming, and I invite you to take a look at it. But the idea is really that to have domain experts, product owners, architects, developers, maybe UX UI in the same room to be able to, from the event perspective, to describe an entire process with domain events. So I don't know if we take a basic example, maybe with this podcast, if I do the if we need to make the event storming of what happened since the beginning. Maybe we have started to Nicolas started by introducing the podcast, then Yoan introduced himself, and so on and so on. So we describe really with events what's going on in a
use case,
in a given process.
You describe some use cases.
Well, you can, yes, we may call it like this. It can be flow, it can be a process in a user journey, it can be a lot of stuff at the end. And the idea is really to create a shared understanding of what's going on for a given process, and to identify clearly where are the bottlenecks, where are the what we call hotspots in event storming, where something is blurry, something needs to be investigated, maybe identify area for improvement. And
can we do it without the business, or it's mandatory? It's not a technical one. It's a
no, it's not a technical one at all.
Yeah.
It's really the idea of aligning business representatives with IT experts. So if you do it, we could imagine a world in which we can do it isolated from the business, but I think at one point we need to confront it to have a feedback from the business on it, and it's easier to have this kind of feedback instantly by being in the same space, working on the same topic at the same time.
Yes, I just want to highlight to our podcast listener that you need to have the business in the room to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And when I say domain experts, it's really business domain experts. It's not someone from a developer that is who would be let's say a domain expert on a given domain model. It's really domain expert in the sense of DDD, of domain driven design. So really a business expert.
So the frequency of this kind of workshop is maybe each 3 months, or
honestly it depends. What I would recommend, each time you have a process to deep dive in, use it.
Okay.
It's simple as
but we need to involve the business. I know in some teams the business maybe it's not so involved, so to in order to process this kind of workshop, we need to involve the business.
What I will do after the podcast, I will send you the link to some resources for those tools, because there are plenty of great resources, and I would like to mention one from Mathieu Tournemire and Philippe Bourgault. If you want to take a look, they are working on a blog called Event Storming Journal. There are plenty of stuff if you want to start. Plenty of ideas to facilitate your first event storming journey.
We will share the resources after the podcast. So before deep dive into example mapping and focus on it, just the last one, maybe I don't know so much this one. It's a value stream mapping. Maybe can you tell us?
So what could be the difference between event storming and value stream mapping? Because maybe there are some similarities in it. The idea of value stream mapping is really to focus on flows or processes, but the idea here is really to focus on identifying waste and where inefficiencies in a given process. Basically, it's something that comes from the Lean. From the industry, and it's where it was born, and it's really this. So the idea is to represent each step for a given process. Maybe step one, in this step, there are 2 teams that are involved. The duration is about 1 week. Then we have another step, 3 teams involved here. Who are the team involved? Who takes the responsibilities of which kind of decision? Here we spend, 1 month, and so on and so on.
It's exclusively in a business side, or we have some technical parts?
Here, just like the others, the ideas could be to mix people. And the idea is really to say, okay, here are the current process. We have a cycle times for each part of the process. What could be done? What could be made to improve the lead time? So the entire time spent for the given process. So it's really the idea of improving processes.
Okay, because in another podcast about how we can measure the productivity with business value, I talk about a little of value stream mapping, but if you have some resources to share with a podcast listener, I'm really interested in this way.
And I think the best resources on Lean, because it's really related to Lean. I would say it's LSD. LSD stands for Lean Software Development.
Okay.
It's a book written by Mary and Tom Popendick, and they explain basically it's Lean applied to software development, and it's really interesting because they have identified in Lean, in classic Lean, so industrial one, we have identified 7 sources of waste, but the Popendix made the work of translating those 7 sources of waste in the software development side, and that's really interesting to see their point of view on that. And for example, one source of waste in LSD is really to have code that is not pushed in production because it's a stock. It's something stock somewhere, and it has a cost. It's something that you have invested in, and because it's not in production, it's a waste for now. Just like in logistic, a physical stock.
Yes, it's to have a short feedback loop at the end. So it's a technique like trunk-based development, or
it's related to all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So now we have a clear definition of story mapping, event storming, and value stream mapping. We can focus now on example mapping. So could you tell us what is example mapping, and maybe how does it work?
What I would like to add also is maybe a last one, but I won't deep dive in. But just like to add another one. Sorry. One that could be interesting as well as developers is customer journey. It's really related to how I can empathize the potential users of my product, and I think this one is really interesting because it's really from the customer point of view or the user point of view, really be interested in what they are living at the moment and how we could improve their life. And I think as developers, we should really be interested in our customers at the end.
Yeah.
I close the explanation on this one, but it's really another one that is really interesting. And example mapping. So for me, example mapping, the idea is pretty simple. It's basically making the implicit explicit.
Okay.
At the opposite of the previous tools that we talked about, example mapping, the idea is really to focus on a given product backlog item or user story, and really take some time to clarify through concrete examples what is behind a given item.
Yes, so it's more operational, because example mapping, it's maybe you can use it in your daily work.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, totally. So here it's something that I would recommend to use. Yeah, just like you said, maybe daily, not necessarily daily, but as soon as you have you have a new user story, it can really be valuable to use this kind of tool to create alignment. And so for this kind of workshop, it can be really quick, and I will demonstrate it just with a little example. But what are the profiles you need to have in this kind of workshop? Product owner for sure, the developers.
Yeah.
If you have tester in a team, it could be really useful to have them. Business analyst, all the profile inside the team. And sometimes you need to have also people outside from the team if you need to have answers to questions. That could be a profile that could be relevant for...
Sometimes we heard that we need los tres amigos, you know. You tell us that we need some other guys external to the team, or so. What is the best is to have the tres amigos, or
to start, basically to start, yeah, it's always interesting to have the tres amigos, so basically product owners, developers, testers, if we stay on that, the free kind of profiles, to start with that. But sometimes you will see that in this kind of workshop, you need to have answers that are not inside the team. So it can be really useful to have a person that can give the answer to your question almost instantly. A given business representative. But to start with, you can clearly do it inside the team, and it can provide a lot of value. So really the idea, how it can be done, I will show you and I will explain what could be the value in it.
Just for a podcast listener, so example mapping is to clarify example, because when you develop a user story, many times you have a lack of example. The user story describes the roles of the business, but without example.
Yeah, and for me, I like to use this metaphor, but I like to play game, board game. Often when you want to play with newbies on a game of yours, you need to explain the rules. The rules are pretty silly for you, but for other people, they can seem really hard they can be really hard to understand.
Yeah.
And you can do the exercise at home with your friends or whatever, and you can try to explain a game, a simple one for you, and just try to explain the rules. You will see empty eyes. You will see people that are, oh my God, what is this game? It seems boring. I don't understand anything, and so on. But once you start explaining by example, so playing for nothing, we say jouer pour rien in French. You will see that people will understand really in a quicker way than explaining rules. So it's the whole idea for me. It's really to specify by example. It was the name of a book by Gorko Adzic, by the way, that was really great, specification by example. It's really this idea of making the implicit explicit by taking examples from the real life to illustrate acceptance criteria. Instead of having a lot of text that won't be read by anyone or that can be misinterpreted, we will take some time to be sure that we have the same ID for each acceptance criteria on a given user story.
And it's interactive, so because it's a workshop, and we'll see the frequency and the duration, but because it's an interactive workshop, we can ask directly the question or something.
Yeah. Let me just share the screen. So for the podcast, I will explain what is on the screen. But basically, the idea of the example mapping is to say, okay, we as a team need to work on a new feature. Maybe I will take this example later on. We need to work on a new feature. As a product owner, let's say the product owner will come with the explanation of a user story, basically maybe a title, a description. So the product owner, let's say Bob will start by explaining the user story. He will take a yellow sticky note. Yes, it's another workshop with sticky notes. He will take a virtual or physical one, and he will write the title of the user story. He he will explain what he has in mind with a user story, what could be the pain expressed by the users or business representative that makes this user story existing. Then what Bob will do is really to say, okay, for this user story, I have identified those rules. So associated business rules, let's say it like that. Those rules will be represented with blue sticky note or whatever the color you want to use, but another color at the end. And you can see those rules, those business rules, as what we call acceptance criteria. In user stories, it's basically the idea of acceptance criteria. At this stage,
usually we have the user story description and the rules. And what is new is the sticky note, the green sticky note and the green red sticky note.
Yeah, at this point, what I recommend, so once you have the product owner that has explained the user story and what he has seen, observed, or thought regarding rules, it's really to say, okay, guys, folks, let's say it like this, it's more inclusive. Okay, folks, let's take a few times to think about what has been said and ask your question, but don't ask it verbally. Take some time to put it on sticky notes. So the new color that we will introduce at this point is the red or pink one. Is really the questions. Here the idea is to say, maybe at this point we have already some questions that need to be tackled. Maybe we have some stuff that are blurry, and we would like to know it. But the idea to do it with sticky notes is really to say, we don't want to have one person that will bias the entire group, so that will lead the conversation to a given direction. We would like to be as divergent as possible.
It's a collaborative,
Yeah, it's really collaborative, and we would like to give the opportunity to any folk in the room, so any developer or any representative in the room, any attendee in the room, to be able to express him or her and be able to express an opinion on it.
All people in the room will be involved.
Yeah, everyone will be involved at this point. So basically, often we have this. You have a user story, you have the rules, and often what I would recommend, what I encourage is to give a space at this point to say, okay, folks, let's ask your question on sticky notes, and after 2 minutes, for example, of writing question sticky notes, then we debrief all together. And what is really interesting here, because we have left some time to people, we have really different point of view on the given user story, and you, by opening this space, this time in individual, you will see that you will have plenty of different point of view on the same user story. And you cannot have this kind of conversation, you cannot have this kind of divergent point of view if you don't have this solo space. Solo workshop part. Once you have gathered the questions, so the product owner or business representative try to answer them. Sometimes it's related to the rules. Maybe it's something that needs to be clarified. Sometimes it can be I don't understand this word here. Could you explain it? It's often what happens.
Just in practice, for our podcast listener that want to organize this kind of workshop, how many times you have between the rule and the question? Or
so basically, if you start with, you will see to explain the user story and the rules, it's between 5 and 10 minutes, depending on the size of the topics, and then you can leave 2 or 3 minutes for the questions. Often it's really quick to write the questions. Then to answer the question, you can leave. You can say you have 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the number of questions, just like the previous step. And then the rest of the workshop time, you can leave it to express for each rule at least one example that will make the rule really more explicit.
But if you are not able to answer the question, what happened?
So if you are not able to answer the question, it's related to the previous discussion we had. It means that the question that you don't have the answer inside the person in the workshop. So statu quo for me, you need to give up. You need to leave it like this, and we need to decide. We need to identify who could be the best person in the company that could answer those questions.
So you reschedule another meeting just to answer it? Or
it can be the PO that takes the action to say, okay, we need to have an answer to the question. I take the point, and I will reschedule another meeting, another example mapping session to deep dive into the topic once we have the answers to those questions.
And we will complete the user story with question and another example.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
And really often what happens is, and it's really interesting, it's you if you do the exercise, you will see that you will have problem with the words used in the user story. And that's really interesting. It means that we need to create alignment on the terms used in the user story, and we need to add them in what we call ubiquitous language.
Talk about DDD and ubiquitous language.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we need to have a clear definition of the words that we use as a team for us and for the rest of the business representative or stakeholders.
And for our podcast listener, it's this is the link between this kind of workshop and ATDD or BDD.
Yeah, clearly. So once we have answered our questions, we can go on the example part. And for that, collaboratively, we'll try to identify one or more examples per rule. So really, the idea is to be able to have clear examples for each rule. If we do the mapping with what you may use in your daily work, you can see maybe I have this for the ones who are. Who are watching the video, you can see user story, then user story, so it's for user story or product backlog item, whatever the name you use in your current team. Then the rules are really the acceptance criteria. You may use it at the moment, and then the example you may be able to attach those examples to acceptance criteria. So the idea is really to have these trees for each user stories that need to be to have this kind of level of explanation.
And just for the example part, this is the output for the acceptance criteria, but to validate the ticket. So each example need to be verified when you deliver the unit of work or.
Yeah, it may be a rule in your team. Yeah, that's it. The idea is really often what we have in teams is to say we have a definition of done in teams that says, okay, for each user story we need to validate that acceptance criteria are ensured on a given environment. But to be able to check the acceptance criteria, often the one that will make the acceptance, let's say it like this, will need to create example, or they'll need to have access to an existing one, to an existing example. So at one point, you will have people that will try to clearly accept acceptance criteria to ensure that the functionality or the feature of the user story ensure those acceptance criteria. But often the test scenarios or the test examples that will be used are not documented and that are not explicit for the ones that will make the job. So it's really a shame. So
it can be a big deal. It can be a big deal to build the data set.
And the idea is really to have story, rules, examples, and maybe question at one point. That would be what have been tackled. And once you have this kind of details for a user story, what is really good for us as developers is really by having those examples, we can do TDD really easily. We can call it ATDD, BDD. We don't need to have a cucumber or stuff like that to be able to work. But it's really a great way to start with TDD in a team, because what I have observed in a lot of companies is, okay, we would like to work with TDD, so test-driven development, but often what I can observe is, okay, we have learned how to use it on a code kata, but how we can use it in a real life example. So, what is the main blocker for using TDD in a company is really we have discovered, or we have learned that in TDD we have 3 steps: red, green, refactor. Okay, it's good, but where do we start?
Yes.
And
so
with example mapping, we start with examples.
Yes, we can start with a double feedback loop. We have the first feedback loop is ATDD with the example linked to the user story. And after we have a second feedback loop just to have the TDD and sub-step. Yeah,
that's it. And
but it's what we call canon TDD or not?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. For me, that was something missing in TDD cycle, red, green, refactor. Canon TDD, so it's inside the book from Kate Beck that has been published last year. It's called Tidy First. He explained what he has called canon TDD. It's really the idea of starting TDD loops by writing a list of the test scenarios. So basically, what we have, we give example mapping as a result.
But it's a TDD. It's just to have a link or not. It's not the same, or it's the same.
From my point of view, it could be the same, but it really depends on what we have as a definition behind ATDD and BDD. Because for me, it's ATDD just one additional layer on top of TDD, just to have a clear alignment with business, and maybe to have a common language with automation or not, with Gherkin or stuff like that. It depends on what are the definitions behind those kind of stuff. I'm not attached that much on the definition, but I'm attached to value. And what I can say is there are plenty of values by using example mapping as a tool, as a daily tool for a team to create alignment, eliminate misunderstanding, align people on the ubiquitous language. It can really create. It can really help the team to start with TDD or to use TDD on a daily basis, and it can really provide a lot of values, because if you are aligned on the examples, the probability that you will miss the point of a user story is really, really low.
Yeah.
So you won't lose more, let's say, days on validation of a given user story, or validation or acceptance of a given user story, because if you are aligned on the examples, you cannot miss the point.
But the key is to have all people available for this kind of workshop, and the frequency.
Yeah, that's why in most teams, most of the teams that are using a framework like Scrum have already dedicated time for this kind of stuff. Often they have already time for
just need to complete the existing.
That's it. For refinement, we call it sprint backlog refinement. Before that, it was called backlog grooming or whatever. But it's really the idea of taking some time during the sprint to prepare the future. And so it's really just an addition in this kind of workshop. Okay, instead of having just instead of having conversation that are not really facilitated around user stories, maybe we can use this format of example mapping, because it can really create alignment and really quickly, and it's really collaborative. I have already observed a lot of times, it's really a nightmare to be in a sprint refinement, because people are not involved and so on. in example mapping, everyone is involved.
You can
So
ask
really
question
transform.
or
You can ask question. Yeah, you can give your point of view on a given user story. So it really creates a team cohesion as well. So it's really efficient. And yeah, I really encourage you to try it at least.
And you talk about ubiquitous language, but is it the place to challenge the ubiquitous language or to create it?
Both of them, I would say. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the product owner need to initiate the ubiquitous language, and in this session you can challenge it or suggest some new road.
Yeah, and that's why I said earlier. For me, it's really a workshop to make the implicit explicit, because we will work as well on the vocabulary, and that's really critical to work on it, to be sure that we use the good words for the good concepts. And too many times I've seen it. We use the same words for different concept, or we use different words for the same concept. It's really a nightmare in companies. So,
but you describe this nightmare. But how you can explain that in each refinement, people don't organize this kind of workshop? Maybe they don't know the example mapping,
Yeah,
and,
maybe. Yeah.
Is
Too many
it
times they don't know it.
Is it a question of initiative to lead the workshop?
I don't know.
What is missing?
I think it's just the knowledge. Just to know that it exists, to try it at least. If you try it, that's why I really encourage anyone who listens to this podcast to give it a try at least. Just like any experiment that you can do, give it a try. Reflect on it. What can it bring to the team? Do we want to try it again? Do we want to keep it? Do we want to use it on a daily basis? But ask this kind of question as a team, and at least give it a try. And often it's basically that we don't know what we don't know. At some point, when we know what we don't know, we will give it a try to what we don't know. And you don't need to be an expert to use it. Just like I say, maybe you can start with a facilitator if you have one, so an agile coach or a scrum master. It's really the kind of stuff that they can facilitate. But if you are a developer in a team and you would like to give it a try, the facilitation is really easy.
So for you, this in all refinement, example mapping should be mandatory.
At least for user story that contains complexity. If we have a user story, a silly one, we need to add a welcome message on the website. I don't know. I don't think it's relevant, but often when we work in a company, when we work as a team, it's not the kind of silly user story that we are working on. So for me, it can provide a lot of values in a lot of different fields.
Okay, so
and it doesn't take time. Once you are good at it, after a few sessions, after a few user stories, you will see that the time you will spend on it will be really quicker, because everyone will be
aware
of it, aware of the format and so on. So and what you have as an outcome, it doesn't have any price. Shared understanding on each user story that you have in a future sprint, it's really worth the price for me.
Maybe we will share good resources or YouTube video about example mapping. But do you want to provide an example in live, or because we need to keep some time at the end to talk about Advent of Craft, your great initiative? But before, do you want to provide a little example, or you prefer to share some good resources about example mapping?
But I will share some resources, because I think for the podcast listener it will be hard to follow if I do an example on live. But I will share some resources at the end.
So just before talk about Advent of Craft, I discover last month an exercise is a elephant carpaccio exercise. Maybe You know it. It's to split a user story. So maybe if you can talk a little about this kind of workshop also.
Yep. Yeah, one last word on because it reminds me on example mapping. What you will see as an outcome or as outcomes from this kind of workshop is new user stories. So just like in the elephant carpaccio, that's why I make the connection with it. Why I have the link. Because once you will refine it, you will maybe identify new rules. Maybe you will see that the user story will be bigger than expected. Maybe there are some other user stories inside the user story. So it will help you as well to refine a user story, to split it, to have thinner user stories.
Okay.
So leaner one at least. And that's the whole idea of elephant.
Huge epic instead of a user story.
Yeah, if for one user story you have 20 rules with each one in each of those rules. So each acceptance criteria you have 20 examples. Maybe it's too big. Maybe you need to split it. So it could be a great way to see it and to see it visually and to be able to split it in a way that makes sense for business and technically.
And what is your advice about, because you talk about the split of a user story. Sometimes we have a user story, but the developer split it in subtasks instead of create some other user stories. Maybe it's a link with the elephant carpaccio exercise, but
it really depends on how you want to work as a team. Regarding the tasks, what I like, I've used this practice a lot in my past time as developer. What we like to do at this time was really to say, instead of creating tasks in a tool, task for a given user story, what we like to practice was to say, okay, let's take some time together as a mob. So we were working all together on the same computer at the same time in the same space. And the idea was to say, okay, now we have the examples. We know exactly what we need to implement. Let's try to design it, to design the contracts. So maybe we will need to have this in this service. We will have to have this. And we were together to create to-dos in our code. And that's, instead of creating tasks, we were creating to-dos in the code base, and then we were able to split the work like this. I really like this approach because we were aligned on what needs to be done technically to support the given examples.
But it's a big shift in the culture.
Often, yeah. But yeah, at this time we were really working as a true mob. Let's say it like this. We wanted to work to share the knowledge, to design stuff together, to be able to ensure that the level of quality what we wanted inside the team.
It's a sociable programming approach.
Yeah, it was really sociable.
Yeah. Because we need to. I really want to share with our podcast listener your initiative. So just a few words of elephant carpaccio exercise.
Yes. So this exercise is really to be able to create thinner user stories at the end. To be able to cut a huge elephant in small pieces. Yeah, but vertically. So the idea is not to say we'll deliver the feet, then we will deliver the rest of the body. It's really the idea. Okay, each vertical slice needs to provide value, and we can do it. So it's a good exercise to think about how we can provide value continuously and how we can split our product backlog, our user stories, to be able to deliver values. So behind this workshop, you will be able to discover the INVEST principles. So it's an acronym that we use in the product backlog management world. That stands for I don't know if we have time for that, but independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. it's basically the principles that we would like to see on each of our user stories.
But
So it's really a good way
again,
to...
it's not a technical workshop.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's really as a team. How could be? It's a way to practice in a free in a safe environment. How we can practice. How we can be better at splitting user stories.
Okay.
I would say it like this.
It's just
So
to
it's a
train
good
the
exercise.
train the team
It's just-
to
Yeah.
to split.
To train the team in a safe environment like this, and then you go back in your refinement, for example, and you have new questions in your mind. You have, okay, are we sure that we provide value with this user story? So you have new question in your tool set to be able to challenge the quality of the user stories. If you provide, for example, if at one point you have in your backlog. We need to plug the database on something. Yeah, maybe you missed something because you won't provide any value to plug a database. Maybe you need to split it vertically, to split your item vertically and so on.
Maybe for big organization, even if you are not able to deliver the feature as soon as possible, it's relevant to do this kind of workshop.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's relevant for anyone, I think.
Because after we can improve your delivery step, and it's a complementary.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for the elephant capture exercise. Maybe do you want to add some additional information, or you can talk about the advent of craft now?
Yeah. Just like a last word on user stories.
Yeah.
Too many times I see user story as something that is written in the backlog and that must to be done. Just a small reminder on user stories. A user story should be created in a way that you can see it as a promise for a conversation. It's not something written in marble. I don't know if you can say that in English. It's a promise for conversation between the product owner and the rest of the team. And we need to be able to challenge the user stories.
It's a manifesto principle. It's an interaction and...
That's it. Yeah. But too many times I see, the PO has written a user story. We must to do it. No. It's just a promise for a conversation. It needs to be challenged. The product owner can have made a wrong interpretation of something. It needs to be challenged. Everything needs to be challenged.
Maybe it's a legacy of waterfall cycle.
That's it. Yeah, that's why I like to insist on this. It's just a promise for conversation, and that's it. So have the conversation, and example mapping is a really great way to have this kind of conversation.
It's
that's it. Yeah,
we need to shift our mind for lean culture.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we can talk about the great initiative of Advent of Craft.
Yeah. Sorry for that. I would like. Yeah. So what is Advent of Craft? The idea. What we have created this initiative. So the idea was to sorry for that. We have created this initiative in 2023. The idea was really to create a community of passionate developers, developers who would like to share and learn. And the idea is really to say how we could build better code together every day. And each day in December, we have published a challenge. So 2 years now, in 23 and 24. And each day we were publishing a challenge. And the idea was to connect people together with a dedicated Discord channel. So we have a Discord channel that helps to connect people, and on Discord the idea is really to say, okay, we have published a new challenge. The idea is not like in the advent of code, for example, it's not to be the better to solve it or being the best to solve it in a given amount of time or whatever. it's really, we publish a challenge related to practices like TDD, example mapping, like property-based testing, example mapping, or whatever. You have a description of each challenge, something that needs to be done. You have a source code in 7 programming languages, and the next day we publish a proposed solution from our side, from our point of view. But where is the value is really in the conversation we had on the given day. So each day we had great conversation. If I don't know if you see my screen.
Yes, the role is to discover and contribute for the community, and for if you want to discover some topics that if you don't have enough time in your daily work, it's an occasion to discover this kind of method.
Yeah, and the idea is really to say all together we can learn from each other, we can progress together, we can create a learning culture between each others. And that was really great because we had great started some conversation, some live conversation, live coding. We have played a lot. We everyone participants shared their answers, their thoughts during each days, and that was really good. That was really cool. And our mantra for this initiative is really sharing is caring. We believe a lot in it, so we would like to. The idea was really to embrace the software craftsmanship spirit with create a community of professionals or community of developers, no matter the name what we would like to say to that. And we have created a lot of great discussion. We had a lot of great interaction. We have connected people. That was really great. And if you are interested in this kind of topic, I really invite you to take a look at it. Just like for example mapping, I don't say it's the most the better stuff you will see in your life, but give it a try, please. And if you like it, don't hesitate to provide feedback, to connect with us on Discord, to start discussion. It's not too late to have great discussion on this kind of topic.
So and we will share the Discord and the link to the event. And I know that you work to improve and develop in other languages this initiative. So it's a great for the community.
So in 23 we were supporting at the beginning only one language because we were running out of time. So we have supported Java for each day. Then we have supported C#, TypeScript, and maybe Kotlin. And Kotlin for this year, Kotlin, yeah. And this year we supported 7 languages from the beginning, from day one. So C#, Java, Kotlin, TypeScript, PHP, Scala, and Python. So the idea was really to be the more inclusive, as possible. Let's say it like this.
And each developer can contribute to add his language or not?
Yeah, with pleasure. We have a list of contributors because this year we asked to several people to contribute if they wanted to contribute. So we had 7 contributors plus Yoan and I. That was really great. We had just like I said, it's a free initiative. It's only for the community. There is nothing to sell, and we are happy by just having the discussion. It's really this idea of growing together. And for the next year, if you want to contribute, don't hesitate to contact us, to reach us. The idea is really to have 1 challenge per day. The more contributors we have, the more easier it will be to have a large spectrum that will be covered. Because when you are alone or 2 person on a given topic, it will create a lot of biases. But when we are more than that, it can really create new challenges, new horizon, new point of view that could be really interesting to integrate in the initiative. So don't hesitate if you are interested in, give it a try. And if you like it, don't hesitate to reach us. And if you want to contribute, it will be with pleasure to support a new program.
You can follow Yoan on LinkedIn to follow this initiative also. And we'll share in a resource the link. So just to finish this podcast, if you have an advice to, in a continuous approach, to keep going on example mapping without risking to skipping this step, what is your advice to keep in the culture of the team the organization of example mapping? If you have one advice.
Something I like to say, it's take some time at the end of each session to debrief, to reflect on a mini retrospective. It can spend 2 minutes if it's enough, but spend just give it a space in which you can debrief at the end of each session, just to be sure that anyone is okay with the way you structure it, you facilitate it, it has been facilitated, and to give a space for improvement for the next session. By doing it, you keep the pace and you keep the interest of people. And if someone wants to try a new stuff, okay, let's discuss it. And maybe the next time this person will be able to facilitate it, and you will try a new approach.
Your advice is to the whole team should have the ownership to take the initiative to lead and organize the example mapping. Not one
really
person.
Inclusive. No, it can be really inclusive. It can be it can be really inclusive. You can any member of the team can be at one point able to facilitate it, and it can be really a good way to keep this in the culture and take some time also at the end of each session just to have a reflect time or a continuous improvement time, whatever the name we
thank you so much, Yoan. Like I am in a continuous improvement approach, so don't hesitate to leave your feedback or ask in a Q&A section any question you have. Yoan and me will try to answer it. And don't hesitate to follow our LinkedIn page or YouTube channel. So thank you so much. And for our podcast listener, I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.